What if I told you thousands of Australian retirees choose where to move based on glossy brochures promising cheap coastal living, mild weather, and great community, only to realise a year later that the reality is brutal heat, limited medical access, rising costs, and a loneliness nobody mentioned? Towns where the air conditioning never stops, specialist appointments mean all-day road trips, and the friendly community exists, just not for you. Sounds like retirees who didn't do their homework and are blaming the town instead of themselves, right? Not quite. I'm Mr. Austral, and while some regret comes with any big life change, these 10 towns show up again and again in retirement forums, Facebook groups, and real estate whispers as places retirees move to with hope and leave quietly, having learned the hard way that marketing promises and lived reality are very different things, especially after you've locked your superannuation into a house that's hard to sell and even harder to enjoy. But don't worry, I got you. Subscribe and let's start. Number 10. Port Douglas, Queensland, tropical paradise. Expensive reality. Port Douglas in far north Queensland, about 70 kilometres north of Cairns, sells itself as tropical retirement paradise where retirees can live near Great Barrier Reef, enjoy warm weather year-round, and embrace relaxed coastal lifestyle in boutique town that's sophisticated alternative to touristy Cairns. The reality that retirees discover is that Port Douglas is expensive tourist town where permanent residents subsidise tourism industry through elevated cost of living. Wet season humidity creates months of oppressive conditions that make outdoor activity miserable. Cyclone risk creates ongoing anxiety and occasional evacuation stress. Social scene is transient tourism workers rather than stable retiree community. And medical services are adequate for healthy retirees, but inadequate when serious health issues emerge, requiring regular specialist care that means either accepting 4-hour round trips to Cairns or relocating entirely. Housing prices that attracted retirees ranged from $400,000 to $800,000, appearing affordable compared to Brisbane or Gold Coast. But retirees discover that strata fees for units are $3,000 to $6,000 annually. Council rates are elevated. Insurance costs have skyrocketed due to cyclone risk, with some properties becoming uninsurable, and maintenance costs in tropical climate are constant battle against humidity, mold, and decay that destroys anything not continuously maintained. The combination creates ongoing costs that exceed budgets based on metropolitan comparisons. The climate promised warm tropical living, but delivers oppressive wet season from November through April, where humidity makes simple activities, like walking to shops, exhausting. Mold grows on everything, including clothes and furniture, requiring constant vigilance, and the psychological weight of months without relief from humidity wears down retirees who expected year-round pleasant conditions. The dry season, from May to October, is genuinely beautiful, but retirees realise they've committed to location where half the year is endurance test rather than tropical paradise. The cyclone risk that seemed abstract becomes concrete reality when warnings are issued. Preparations consume days of effort. Evacuation recommendations create stress about leaving possessions and pets, and the actual storms, when they hit, create terror that retirees in their 70s and 80s find traumatic rather than adventurous. Even when cyclones miss Port Douglas directly, the preparation stress and post-storm assessment of damage becomes exhausting annual ritual that retirees didn't anticipate when buying Tropical Dream. The social isolation emerges because Port Douglas population of 3,000 swells to tens of thousands during tourist season, creating crowded conditions retirees find unpleasant, then drops dramatically in off-season when tourism workers leave, creating empty town feel. The permanent retiree community exists but is smaller than anticipated, and breaking into established social groups proves difficult. The sophisticated dining and culture that attracted retirees is tourism-focused, with prices reflecting tourist market rather than resident budgets, making regular participation in town's lifestyle financially unsustainable on pension income. Medical services are the critical failure point. Port Douglas has medical centre with GPs and basic pathology, but specialists require travel to Cairns 70 kilometres away. For healthy retirees, this seems manageable, but as health deteriorates, requiring regular cardiology, oncology, or other specialist appointments, the 4-hour round trips become exhausting burden. Emergencies require ambulance transport to Cairns Hospital. The property market reality hits when retirees decide to sell. Port Douglas has limited buyer pool of wealthy retirees and investors, creating market where properties sit for months or years unless priced aggressively below purchase price. Retirees who bought hoping for capital gains discover that tropical paradise towns have volatile markets where oversupply from other regretful retirees and changing buyer preferences create stagnation. The transaction costs of selling, relocating, and purchasing elsewhere consume capital that retirees can't afford to lose. Number 9. Hervey Bay, Queensland, whale-watching retirement trap. Hervey Bay on Queensland coast, about 300 kilometres north of Brisbane, markets itself as ideal retirement destination with mild climate, affordable housing, whale-watching appeal, and relaxed coastal lifestyle, attracting thousands of retirees who discover that mild climate means oppressively hot, humid summers requiring constant air conditioning. Affordable housing is older, low-quality stock requiring expensive maintenance. Whale watching is 3-month seasonal attraction that doesn't sustain year-round engagement, and relaxed lifestyle is code for limited cultural offerings and social opportunities, creating boredom and isolation for active retirees expecting engagement. Housing prices from $300,000 to $500,000 appeared affordable and attracted retirees selling expensive Brisbane or Gold Coast properties expecting to bank difference and fund comfortable retirement. Reality is that affordable houses are often 1970s or 80s construction with asbestos, aging plumbing, and electrical requiring expensive updates, single glazed windows, and minimal insulation making cooling and heating expensive, and maintenance issues that emerge immediately after purchase, including roof repairs, stumps needing replacement, and termite damage requiring expensive treatment. The money saved on purchase price disappears into maintenance and renovations, bringing properties to livable standard. The climate promised year-round comfort, but delivers hot, humid summers where temperatures regularly exceed 32 degrees, with humidity making conditions oppressive from November through March. Retirees discover that their savings from housing are consumed by electricity bills, running air conditioning constantly, and outdoor activities they imagined enjoying are limited to early mornings before heat becomes unbearable. The mild winter is pleasant, but retirees realize they've committed to location where summer is endurance test requiring indoor confinement for months. The whale watching season from July to November is genuinely spectacular, but retirees discover that 3-month attraction doesn't fill retirement calendar, and the town's economy and culture revolve around this season, creating annual cycle where everything is busy and expensive during whale season, then quiet and limited in off-season. The cultural offerings beyond whales are minimal, limited dining beyond tourist-focused seafood restaurants, minimal art scene, and entertainment options that exhaust quickly, leaving retirees wondering how they'll fill years of retirement. The medical services are adequate initially, with hospital providing emergency and general care, multiple medical centres with GPs, and basic specialist services including cardiology and orthopedics. But as health needs become complex, requiring oncology, neurology, or other specialists not available locally, retirees face regular 300-kilometre round trips to Brisbane or consideration of relocating entirely. The hospital, while present, is small and serious cases transfer to Brisbane, meaning emergency health crisis involves ambulance transport or helicopter evacuation, creating anxiety about aging far from comprehensive care. The social scene promised community of like-minded retirees, but reality is that Hervey Bay attracts different retirement demographics, creating divisions rather than cohesion. Some retirees are wealthy, maintaining expensive lifestyles. Some are budget conscious, living on pension only. Some are active, seeking constant engagement. Others are sedentary, preferring quiet. And the diversity creates fragmentation rather than unified community. Breaking into established groups proves difficult, and many retirees report loneliness despite being surrounded by other retirees. The distance from family becomes burden as retirees age. The 300 kilometres from Brisbane seems manageable initially, but grandchildren visiting requires them taking days off school. Adult children visiting means weekend trips become exhausting obligations rather than pleasures. And retirees discover they're missing family events because travel becomes burden. The isolation from support networks becomes acute when health issues emerge and retirees need family support, but distance makes regular assistance impractical. Number 8, Ballina, New South Wales, Byron. Bay's affordable Shadow Ballina on New South Wales North Coast, about 750 kilometres north of Sydney markets, as affordable alternative to Byron Bay with similar coastal lifestyle, beautiful beaches, and river setting, creating appeal for retirees priced out of Byron's $1 million plus market. Retirees discover that Ballina absorbed Byron Bay's overflow, creating rapid development, destroying quiet town character that attracted them. Housing prices increased 40 to 60% since they researched making any capital gains evaporate, while cost of living increased to near Byron levels. Floods from Richmond River create ongoing risk and insurance nightmares. Summer heat and humidity rival Queensland without tropical compensation. And medical services, while present, are strained by population growth, creating wait times and access difficulties. Housing from $500,000 to $750,000 appeared affordable compared to Byron Bay's $1.5 million plus, but retirees discover that recent arrivals paid $400,000 to $500,000 just 3 to 5 years earlier, meaning they bought at peak with limited capital gain prospects. The rapid price increases attracted investors and developers, creating construction boom that destroyed quiet coastal character retirees expected, with unit developments and subdivisions transforming sleepy river town into growth center, with traffic, noise, and density replacing peace and space. The flood risk from Richmond River location creates insurance crisis, where premiums increased 300 to 500% in recent years, and some properties became uninsurable entirely. Retirees on fixed incomes can't absorb $5,000 to $10,000 annual insurance costs and face choice of going uninsured, risking total loss or selling at loss to escape. The 2022 floods demonstrated that risk isn't theoretical with extensive damage, and evacuations creating trauma for retirees who expected coastal serenity, not disaster zone evacuations. Subscribe to show that these videos actually help and make sense. The climate is hot and humid in summer, with temperatures regularly exceeding 30 degrees and humidity making conditions oppressive from December through March. Retirees expected mild coastal climate, but discover that northern New South Wales coast is subtropical, with summer conditions requiring constant air conditioning and outdoor activities limited to mornings. The beautiful beaches are genuinely appealing, but usable comfortably only half the year when heat isn't overwhelming. The Byron Bay proximity that seemed advantage becomes liability, as Byron's crowds, traffic, and dysfunction spill into Ballina. Weekend traffic jams, overcrowded beaches during holidays, and general chaos from tourism overflow mean retirees can't escape Byron's problems, while also not accessing Byron's cultural offerings and dining scene that justify its dysfunction. Ballina becomes worst of both worlds, disruption without compensation. The medical services are hospital with emergency department and general services, multiple medical centres, and some specialists. But population growth outpaced capacity expansion, creating wait times for GP appointments, specialist referrals taking months, and elective procedures delayed. The hospital is small, and serious cases transfer to Gold Coast or Brisbane, creating anxiety about emergency care adequacy. Number 7, Victor Harbour, South Australia. Premium Fleurieu costs. Victor Harbour on South Australia's Fleurieu Peninsula, about 85 kilometres south of Adelaide markets, as premier South Australian coastal retirement destination with beautiful coastline, Granite Island, mild climate, and proximity to Adelaide, creating appeal for retirees seeking combination of coastal lifestyle and capital city access. Retirees discover that premium positioning creates premium costs, where housing from $450,000 to $700,000 is expensive for regional South Australia. Cost of living approaches Adelaide levels without Adelaide's competition and choice Medical services, while adequate, are strained during summer when population swells, winter is cold and wet, requiring heating costs retirees didn't anticipate. And social scene is surprisingly limited despite population of 15,000, creating unexpected isolation. The housing costs relative to regional South Australia shock retirees, who research states' affordability, discovering that Victor Harbour pricing approaches capital city levels. Properties that appeared reasonable compared to Melbourne or Sydney are expensive compared to other South Australian coastal towns, and retirees discover they've paid premium for location without receiving corresponding premium services or amenities justifying costs. The climate promised mild year-round conditions but delivers cold wet. Winters where temperatures drop to single digits. Wind and rain are constant from June through August, and heating costs consume budgets planned for mild conditions. The coastal location creates wind that makes conditions feel colder than temperature suggests, and retirees from Queensland or northern states particularly struggle with winter cold they didn't anticipate. Summer is pleasant, but the winter endurance required is revelation for retirees expecting South Australia's reputation for mild climate to mean year-round comfort. The medical services are hospital providing emergency and general care, medical centres, and visiting specialists. But summer population swell creates capacity issues where GP appointments require weeks wait and hospital emergency department has extended delays. The specialists, while present, are limited to common specialties, and complex cases require Adelaide trips. Retirees discover that proximity to Adelaide means serious health issues require relocation rather than local management, and driving 90 minutes when unwell becomes burden rather than manageable inconvenience. The cost of living approaches Adelaide levels because limited local competition means groceries and services charge prices reflecting captive market. Retirees discover their careful budgeting based on regional cost assumptions fails when Victor Harbour prices reflect premium destination rather than affordable regional town. The dining and entertainment options, while better than small towns, are expensive catering to tourist market rather than retiree budgets. The social scene is surprisingly limited despite population of 15,000 because town caters to Adelaide weekenders and tourists rather than building strong retiree community. The organisations and clubs exist, but breaking in proves difficult, and many retirees report feeling isolated despite being in popular destination. The seasonal population swings mean summer crowds and winter emptiness, creating instability rather than consistent community. The traffic and parking during summer become sources of constant frustration as Adelaide visitors overwhelm town infrastructure, creating conditions retirees sought to escape. The tourism that sustains town's economy creates disruptions that make living there during peak seasons unpleasant. And retirees discover they're in town that prioritizes visitors over residents. Number 6. Bunbury, Western Australia. Industrial port retirement. Mismatch Bunbury in Western Australia, about 175 kilometres south of Perth, markets as affordable coastal alternative to Perth, with beaches, mild climate, and regional city services, creating appeal for retirees seeking home ownership and coastal lifestyle without Perth's expense. Retirees discover that Bunbury is industrial port city, where commercial shipping operations create noise and visual impacts. Beaches, while present, are less appealing than marketing suggests, with some affected by port operations and others requiring drives to access. The mild climate includes hot, dry summers requiring constant cooling. Housing affordability reflects that city struggles to attract residents, creating stagnant property market where capital gains are minimal. And regional city services, while adequate, feel stretched and limited compared to Perth, creating sense of compromise rather than achievement. Housing from $350,000 to $550,000 appears affordable, but retirees discover properties are older, needing maintenance. Neighbourhoods vary dramatically in quality, with cheaper areas having social problems. And the market is slow, with properties taking months to sell when retirees later attempt exit, creating liquidity concerns. The affordability reflects limited demand rather than exceptional value, and retirees realize they bought in market without growth prospects. The climate is hot, dry summers, where temperatures regularly exceed 35 degrees, requiring constant air conditioning use, and the coastal location doesn't moderate heat as much as expected, creating conditions where summer is indoor confinement. The winter is mild but windy, and retirees discover year-round comfort requires more temperature control than anticipated consuming budgets. The medical services are hospital providing comprehensive regional care, multiple medical centres, and most specialist services. But capacity is stretched and wait times for elective procedures and specialist appointments can be months. The healthcare is adequate, but retirees from Perth notice quality and access differences, and serious complex cases still transfer to Perth, creating anxiety about adequacy. The social scene and culture feel limited compared to Perth, creating sense that retirees traded metropolitan benefits for modest cost savings without receiving compensating lifestyle improvements. The dining and entertainment options are adequate, but repetitive cultural offerings are limited. And many retirees find themselves driving to Perth regularly to access what they left behind, undermining the relocation logic. The distance from Perth family becomes burden as retirees age. The 175 kilometres seems manageable, but becomes obstacle for regular visits, and grandchildren aren't enthusiastic about trips to Bunbury, creating reduced contact. Retirees discover they're far enough to lose daily connection, but close enough to maintain expectations, creating worst positioning. Number 5. Bribie Island, Queensland. Bridge-connected island limitations. Bribie Island north of Brisbane, connected by bridge markets as affordable island lifestyle with beaches, waterways, relaxed pace, and proximity to Brisbane, creating appeal for budget-conscious retirees seeking coastal living near capital city. Retirees discover that bridge connection creates traffic congestion, making exits during peak times. Frustrating island. Geography limits development, creating insufficient medical services for aging population. Beaches are decent but not spectacular, creating sense of compromise. Summer heat and humidity are oppressive, requiring constant cooling. Infrastructure, including sewage and stormwater, is aging, creating service disruptions. And social scene, while active, is insular, making newcomer integration difficult, creating isolation despite high retiree density. Housing from $400,000 to $600,000 appears affordable compared to Brisbane, but retirees discover that body corporate fees for units are $3,000 to $5,000 annually. Older houses require expensive maintenance, particularly addressing coastal weather impacts, and property values have stagnated, creating market where retirees can't exit without losses. The affordability reflects limited appeal rather than value proposition. The bridge connection that seemed advantage becomes daily frustration. The single bridge creates bottleneck where peak times mean 30 to 40-minute delays. Medical emergencies require ambulance transit across bridge where traffic can delay response, and retirees feel trapped on island during busy periods. The convenience of mainland access comes with congestion that undermines the benefit. The medical services are multiple medical centres with GPs and basic pathology, but hospital is on mainland at Caboolture, requiring bridge transit, and specialist care requires travel to Brisbane. For healthy retirees, services seem adequate, but as health deteriorates, requiring cardiology, oncology, or complex care, retirees discover they're on island without comprehensive healthcare, requiring regular mainland trips. Emergencies transfer to mainland hospitals, and serious conditions mean hospitalization away from home, creating family visit complications. The climate is hot, humid, subtropical, where summer from November through March is oppressively uncomfortable with temperatures exceeding 30 degrees and humidity making outdoor activities miserable. Retirees budgeted for electricity costs but underestimated air conditioning requirements, creating budget stress. The mild winter is pleasant but short, and retirees realize they committed to location where much of year is uncomfortable. The beaches are adequate, but not the pristine stretches marketing implied. The ocean beach faces Pacific, but waves can be rough, and some areas have marine stingers requiring protective swimming enclosures. The calm western side, facing Pumic Stone Passage, is pleasant for paddling, but not swimming. Retirees discover beaches are decent, not exceptional, creating sense they settled, rather than achieved coastal dream. The social scene is active with clubs and organisations, but established groups are cliquish, making newcomer entry difficult. Many retirees report feeling isolated despite being surrounded by other retirees, because breaking into friendship groups that formed years earlier proves challenging. The retirement village communities exist, but create separation from broader island, creating fragmentation. Number 4, Busselton, Western Australia. Southwest cost distance reality. Busselton in Western Australia's southwest, about 230 kilometres south of Perth markets, as beautiful coastal retirement destination with jetty, beaches, wine region access, and mild climate creating appeal for retirees seeking Margaret River lifestyle affordability. Retirees discover that distance from Perth eliminates casual family contact, creating isolation. Medical services, while adequate, are strained with specialist care, requiring Perth trips. Cost of living is elevated because regional monopolies charge premium prices. Summer heat is more extreme than expected, requiring cooling budgets. Winter is cold and wet, requiring heating. Property market is stagnant, providing no capital growth, and social scene, while present, is surprisingly insular, making community integration difficult for newcomers despite welcoming reputation. Housing from $450,000 to $700,000 is expensive for regional Western Australia, but appeared justified by lifestyle benefits. Retirees discover that maintenance costs in coastal environment are high, insurance has increased dramatically, and property values have stagnated, meaning capital preservation is questionable. The market lacks liquidity, with properties taking many months to sell when retirees attempt exit. The distance from Perth family becomes acute burden. The 230 kilometres means 2.5 to 3 hour drives that grandchildren resist. Adult children find exhausting for regular visits, and retirees discover they're missing family events because distance creates barrier. The isolation intensifies as retirees age and need family support. Discovering distance makes assistance impractical, requiring paid services or relocation. The medical services are hospital providing emergency and general care, medical centres, and some visiting specialists, but cardiology, oncology, and complex care require Perth trips. For healthy retirees, services seem adequate, but age-related health deterioration creates escalating travel burden. Emergencies requiring specialist intervention mean ambulance or helicopter transport to Perth, and hospitalisation means family travelling hours for visits, creating stress during health crises. The climate includes hot, dry summers, where temperatures regularly exceed 35 degrees, requiring constant air conditioning, and winter, while mild, is wet and windy, requiring heating. Retirees expected moderate coastal climate, but discover temperature extremes require both cooling and heating, consuming budgets. The Margaret River wine region promotes mild climate, but Busselton experiences more extreme conditions than marketing suggests. The cost of living shocks retirees who expected regional affordability. Limited competition means grocery stores charge elevated prices, services from plumbers to electricians bill at near Perth rates while service quality varies. Dining is expensive, catering to tourist market, and retirees discover their careful budgeting fails when Busselton costs approach or exceed Perth levels without Perth service access and competition. Number 3, Port Macquarie, New South Wales. Overcrowded paradise. Lost Port Macquarie on New South Wales mid-north coast, about 400 kilometres north of Sydney, marketed as ideal retirement destination with beautiful beaches, mild climate, comprehensive services, and relaxed coastal lifestyle, attracted massive retiree influx that destroyed the qualities that made it appealing. Retirees discover that popularity created overcrowding where beaches are packed, traffic rivals Sydney during peak times, medical services are overwhelmed with wait times for specialists measured in months, housing prices increased 40 to 50%. In recent years, eliminating affordability, cost of living approaches, Sydney levels, floods create ongoing risk and insurance nightmares, and the community cohesion that marketing promised was destroyed by rapid population growth, creating transient feel rather than established community warmth. housing from $600,000 to $1 million represents dramatic increase from 5 years ago, when properties sold for $400,000 to $650,000. Retirees who bought at peak discovered no capital growth prospects and insufficient rental yields if attempting to preserve capital while renting elsewhere. The market became competitive, with retirees competing against each other, driving prices beyond pension affordable levels. The overcrowding is undeniable. Population approaching 50,000 during peak times overwhelms infrastructure designed for 30,000. Traffic congestion, particularly around Port Macquarie Base Hospital and Town Centre, rivals urban areas. Parking is nightmare during summer. Beaches that were peacefully uncrowded 5 years ago now require arriving early to find space. And retirees discover they relocated to avoid crowds, only to recreate congestion they left. The cost of living approaches. Sydney levels without Sydney wages or competition. Groceries are expensive, dining costs rival metropolitan rates, catering to affluent retiree market, services from healthcare to trades charge premium prices, and retirees discover their budgets based on regional cost assumptions fail when Port Macquarie prices reflect demand from wealthy southern retirees. The community promised welcoming established character, but rapid growth created transient population, where constant turnover prevents stable friendships forming. Many retirees report feeling isolated despite being surrounded by other retirees because everyone is new, simultaneously preventing natural community formation. The established locals feel overwhelmed by newcomer influx, creating tensions rather than welcome. Number 2, Sunshine Coast, Hinterland, Queensland, humidity heat. Isolation, Sunshine Coast, Hinterland towns, including Ballina, Montville, and Mapleton Market as mountain alternatives to coastal heat with cooler temperatures, rainforest scenery, artistic communities, and proximity to coast and Brisbane, creating appeal for retirees seeking lifestyle elevation. Retirees discover that humidity is worse than coast due to rainforest creating oppressive conditions. Much of year, summer afternoon storms are violent and frequent, causing power outages and property damage. Road access is winding mountain routes where aging affects driving confidence. Medical services require descent to coast, creating travel burden. When unwell, cost of living is elevated because supplies must be trucked up mountains. Tourism creates weekend crowds and traffic undermining peace. Winter is cold and damp, requiring heating retirees didn't budget for, and social. Scene is surprisingly limited, with established artistic communities being insular, making retiree integration difficult. The humidity is worse than expected. Rainforest environment creates conditions where moisture is constant. Mold grows aggressively on everything. Clothing never fully dries. And the oppressive feeling is worse than coastal areas because air movement is limited by terrain and vegetation. Retirees expected cool mountain relief, but discover humidity makes conditions uncomfortable regardless of temperature. And summer is particularly oppressive, requiring dehumidifiers and constant vigilance against mold. The weather includes violent afternoon storms during summer, where lightning, heavy rain, and wind create conditions that are genuinely frightening for retirees in houses perched on mountainsides. Power outages are frequent during storm season, requiring generators or acceptance of losing refrigerated food and medications, and aging retirees find storm stress and recovery exhausting. The medical services require travelling down mountains to Nambour or Maroochydore, adding 30 to 40 minutes each direction to any appointment. For healthy retirees, this seems manageable, but as health deteriorates, requiring regular specialist visits, the driving burden becomes exhausting and dangerous when retirees are unwell. Emergencies mean ambulances must climb mountains, delaying response, and retirees discover they're isolated from comprehensive care when it's most needed. The tourism creates weekend invasion, where Montville and Ballina main streets become parking nightmares. Crowds overwhelm cafes and galleries, and the peace that attracted retirees is destroyed every weekend and holiday. Retirees discover they're in tourist destinations rather than peaceful mountain retreats. Number 1. Noosa North Shore, Queensland. Noosa's unaffordable shadow. At number 1, Noosa North Shore, which markets as affordable alternative to Noosa. proper with river access, natural beauty, and proximity to Noosa amenities, attracting retirees priced out of Noosa's extreme market. Retirees discover that affordability is relative. Housing from $600,000 to $1 million is expensive for Queensland regional. Barge access to North Shore creates isolation and vehicle transport costs consuming budgets. Floods from Noosa River create ongoing risk with insurance crisis. Summer heat and humidity are oppressive, requiring constant cooling. Tewantin medical services, while adequate, are strained with complex care, requiring Sunshine Coast University Hospital hour away. Cost of living approaches or exceeds Noosa levels without Noosa's amenities and services. Traffic congestion during holidays rivals metropolitan cities. And social integration proves difficult because established Noosa community is notoriously insular, and newcomers struggle to break through superficial politeness into genuine friendship and community belonging, creating loneliness despite being in popular destination. The North Shore barge access creates daily cost and hassle. Each vehicle crossing costs around $10 to $12, making routine trips expensive. The barge runs limited hours, requiring planning, and mechanical failures strand residents, creating frustration. Retirees discover barge dependence is charming initially, but becomes expensive. Annoying burden, particularly when medical appointments or shopping trips require multiple crossings. The floods from Noosa River demonstrated in recent years that properties marketed as riverfront paradise are flood-prone, with extensive damage, evacuations, and insurance crisis where premiums tripled or quadrupled and some properties became uninsurable. Retirees in flood zones face impossible choice of paying $8,000 to $15,000 annually for insurance or going uninsured, risking total loss. The paradise setting includes disaster risk that retirees didn't adequately research. The climate is hot, humid subtropical, where summer from November through March is oppressively uncomfortable with temperatures exceeding 30 degrees and humidity making air conditioning essential. Electricity costs exceed budgets planned for mild Queensland climate, and outdoor activities retirees imagined are limited to early mornings before heat becomes overwhelming. The beautiful natural setting is accessible comfortably only half the year. The medical services in Tewantin are medical centres with GPs and basic pathology, but specialists and hospital care require travel to Noosa Hospital for basic services or Sunshine Coast University Hospital in Ballina for comprehensive care. The travel burden increases as health deteriorates, and retirees discover that proximity to Noosa doesn't guarantee access to Noosa's private hospital for non-emergency care requiring public system navigation. The cost of living rivals Noosa because suppliers don't differentiate and businesses charge elevated prices reflecting affluent market. Groceries approach metropolitan prices, dining is expensive, services charge premium rates, and retirees discover their budgets based on regional Queensland assumptions. Fail when Tewantin Noosa costs reflect wealthy retiree market competing for limited services. The traffic congestion during school holidays and tourist peak times creates conditions where leaving home becomes strategic decision. The roads into and out of Noosa region become parking lots, roundabouts gridlock, and simple shopping trips take hours. Retirees sought peaceful lifestyle but discover they're in tourist destination where visitor numbers overwhelm infrastructure, creating frustration and isolation as retirees avoid going out during peak times. Subscribe if you found this video helpful.